This is the Rules Committee meeting. It's from 1:30 to 2:30. Let's do a roll call. Since the clerk's not here, do you guys want to do the roll call, or I'll just do it?
Okay, I can do it.
Go ahead, Amy, I'm sorry.
Mr. Trainee,
Here.
Miss Gray Jackson,
Here.
Miss Johnson.
She's been excused. She's in Juneau or something like that.
Okay. Also present with us is Mr. Steele,
Yes.
myself, Amy Silver, clerk staff, and Sierra Smith, clerk staff.
Barbara Jones?
Our clerk. And
Darrell Hess.
Darrell Hess, our ombudsman.
And my student, Tricia Chapman.
Okay.
You have a forum.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Eugene.
Eugene's here. Approval of the agenda. If I get a motion on the agenda.
Move to approve.
Is there a second from you?
Second.
Tim. Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved. There is no business. New business. We have the acceptance of some community council bylaws. As you know, we're redoing the bylaws because of what we did with the community councils. Mr. Hess, do these community council bylaws meet the requirements of the charter?
Yes, I've actually reviewed these 7 sets of bylaws multiple times. The councils put a lot of work into them. They had to revise them multiple times, but in my opinion, currently they all conform to the requirements of the code as amended on February 11th, 2014.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Steele.
Do you have a lot still outstanding? Do we still have a lot outstanding?
I put together, the clerk's office has done a great job with the index,
Yeah.
but to make it easier for the committee, I worked
List.
with the clerk's office and I pulled all the
I
information
got
off
you.
of that sheet and put it on this one sheeter. So with those that, if the committee accepts these 7 bylaws and recommends that the assembly accept them, and the assembly accepts them, that will be 20 community councils whose bylaws have been submitted and accepted, which means there are 17 community councils plus the community council ex officio and Girdwood still left to.
How many of those have not been active councils? Do you have an idea about
I
that?
believe that
They're all
there may be
active.
1 or 2 that are inactive. These councils are actually active. I'll be honest, with the Tudor Area Council, they contacted me and they said, we don't have a large membership, we don't have somebody that can work on our bylaws. So
Would you
I
vote for us?
So I actually took the default bylaws and put together the bylaws for them, and then their membership voted on them.
Great.
So I've made that offer to other community councils because I think we need to recognize that some of them may not have the expertise in the council, or they may have small memberships, and they're all volunteers. So if you look under the not submitted, there are 6 that are working on them, or 1 that's interested, actively working to merge with a neighboring council.
Yeah.
And one of those councils has passed a resolution. I've communicated that to Mr. Trainee. We're waiting on the other council
Yeah.
to pass a similar resolution, and then it would come to the assembly.
And they announced at the
planning
Federation
and zoning.
meeting I attended last night that these 2 community councils want to merge.
Norristown, Ringtown.
Yeah.
One of the-
Mid Hillside, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, Mid Hillside and Hillside.
I think
Okay, I
so.
thought you meant North Star.
No.
Oh, good.
So
Thank you.
they have very small attendance at community councils, but this will work well because they'll have a functioning community council. So it's something we want to have happen across this town.
One of the councils actually has 2 or 3 active members, and they hold their meetings currently with the other council.
Yeah.
So it's just a way to make a success story for both the councils. So there are 5 or 6, Chugiak's working on theirs, they submitted them, they're working on resubmitting them. I know Campbell Park submitted theirs, I provided comments, I expect them back
They're going to
soon.
approve them tonight.
So there's probably 2 councils that aren't very active and another 10 that we have just been ignoring the process.
Madam Clerk, could you draft a letter for my signature to the community councils that have not taken any action, letting them know that per the ordinance, the default bylaws now or your operating bylaws until such time as you submit a copy of your new bylaws to the ombudsman's office for referral to the assembly. I just want them to know there is a set of bylaws for them, but they're the default bylaws. If you do that, I'll sign it and we'll send it to the Federation. Because I don't want to let this linger forever.
May I work with the ombudsman on that?
Absolutely, Madam Clerk.
Too? Okay.
Yes.
Okay? If you do that, I'd appreciate it. If I could get a motion on acceptance of these 7 bylaws.
Move to accept?
Second.
You ask unanimous consent? Any objection? Seeing none. These will now be approved by this body and sent on to the assembly. And Daryl, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
What are you going to do when you don't have bylaws to read anymore?
Yeah, I think you may work on
Did we catch your pay half
some
time?
Title 15 issues.
I know I had a discussion with my spouse on something about 16-year-olds being members of community councils. I told her to call you.
It wasn't in the Campbell Park Community Council's draft bylaws that were submitted.
I know. We discussed that numerous times. Assembly members' comments? Any comments? One change I do want to make is, in the future, I'm going to probably get rid of the community council subcommittee. We don't need it anymore. And instead of having to submit their bylaws to rules committee, I'm going to have them submit directly to the ombudsman, and then we'll just have them send it on to the assembly for approval. We don't need to have a rules committee meet every time we have another bylaw. We don't have that many bylaws coming through to us anymore. These are going to be fights one by one to get them done. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, the code indicates that the bylaws come to the clerk's office.
Yeah.
And then could the clerk's office just send them? to
Absolutely,
Mr.
if you would.
And then Mr. Hess will send it back
Yeah.
and we can work with him to have a form just so that they get submitted for the agenda.
And that works for us.
Okay.
I'd appreciate it, Madam Clerk.
Does the rules committee, sorry.
This what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ms. Greyjoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I was ignoring you.
No. Anyway, I just want to make a comment about the mission of the Rules Committee.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at our mission, there are other issues that
Oh, yeah.
probably need to
We're not
deal-
getting rid of the rules committee.
No,
Just the,
no, I know, but I'm just saying that there are other issues that should probably come before this committee. And anyway, we can talk offline more
Well.
about it. I just wanted to mention that, okay?
I
'Cause we have a
appreciate that.
pretty vast mission statement.
We have a lot of things we're going to do.
Right, thank you.
But this is nice because we only do community councils every 10 years. And I don't think personally I'll be around for the next 10-year one. Of course, I said that the
Never
last
know,
time it
might-
was done.
Might be back.
Who knows? Yes, Tim.
That's basically what my question was.
Yes.
I just
Daryl.
wanted to thank Amy and Sierra, the clerk's office. We couldn't get this done without their assistance, and I really enjoy working with them. We make a good team, and it helps move the process along.
Great,
And
thank you.
As he said, Amy, Sarah, thank you, ladies, for the great work you've done with this. Like I said, we only do this process once every 10 years, and there's so many personalities involved in every community council, and each feels, you can't touch what I'm doing. My bylaws are sacred, so I appreciate your work on this. Yes, Barbara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to let everyone know that Sierra is here today. One of the things that we've done in the clerk's office is we have different staff members that are staffed with assisting the different committees, and we're trying to spread it out. And I think that's really important. For example, Ms. Gray Jackson acts as the budget analyst with staff, the Budget and Finance Committee. And so we're trying to spread that out because that way one person just doesn't have to staff all of the committees. And then when someone is absent, it's just so much easier to cover. And so Amy is going to be moving on to doing some other things. We've discovered she has some very important skills that she's helped with during Heidi's absence and helping with the agenda. So she's going to probably move on and do some of those tasks on a regular basis. And Sierra is going to take over staffing the Rules Committee.
Good.
So that's
thank you,
part of
ma'am.
the reason why she's here. So I
Good.
just wanted to let you know that.
Great, thank you.
Any other assembly member comments? Member comments to the committee?
No, sir.
Good. We're down to audience participation. Yes, what, Daryl?
I actually am glad Ms. Tucker has joined us.
Okay.
I recently participated in the Girdwood Board of Supervisors meeting. They have been having some robust discussions about what it means to be a community council ex officio. Do they want to continue with the Board of Supervisors as the community council ex officio, or do they want to actually create their
one.
own community council? And one of the things they have requested in 2.40 in the code, we do not define really what a community council ex officio is. So they've requested, and I think this is more a legal issue. I don't think I can provide
No.
an answer. Exactly what does it mean to be a community council ex officio? They believe they need that answer before they can finalize their discussion, decide which way they want to move on this. One of the issues, when we did the code rewrite, previously in the code, there was a line that exempted the Girdwood Board of Supervisors as the community council ex officio from the bylaws provisions of 2.40. And when we revised it, I think inadvertently took that language out. So the way the code is written currently, the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, which is an elected body, has to meet the bylaws
Submitting
requirements,
bylaws requirements.
which I think would be fairly hard for them to do as an elected body. So I think the Assembly's going to have to address that issue. But I think how to address that depends on the decision that the Board of Supervisors makes, if they want to continue as a community council ex officio, or if they want to form their own community council.
Ms. Tucker.
Thank you. I think that there were mixed directions and input from Assembly members, particularly Jennifer Johnston, when we were doing this write-up. And so, as Daryl has mentioned, there were two provisions in there. One, that they were ex officio, that was already in there and wasn't defined. I didn't know what it meant. And I didn't have the background that Daryl's been able to provide us with how that came about. And there was the exemption for for them to submit bylaws. I think rather than trying to define ex officio, which I suspect was something that meant in lieu of at the time instead of non-voting, that it really is going to be up to the Assembly to decide whether Girdwood needs to have a community council, or you're going to exempt them from having a community council. And then once the Assembly decides that, then we can make the code revision. And that's sort of where I thought that Jennifer was going in the beginning of this, only I thought that that the Department of Law was already working on that, and there had been participation in the Girdwood meetings from the Department of Law. But I don't think that is going to go, and I think the Department of Law is looking for this to be straightened out because of the revisions that were done to the code. So that's really maybe a Rules Committee thing to think about, to have their input, but rather than having a definition of ex officio drive what Girdwood's doing, which to me would be the tail wagging the dog, is that you decide, is Girdwood a community that needs to be exempt from having a community council that has to have bylaws? Or do they need now to appoint or otherwise develop one of these other subcommittees that they have to be their community council, in which case they can form a community council and then we can get rid of the ex officio.
Well, it's the only part of our town that has an elected body representative is Girdwood.
How about Chukiak?
No.
Didn't Debbie run for and get elected to the
That's a different board.
Board of Supervisors?
Well, what
That's a different land use issue there, isn't it, Julia?
Well, I think that what Mr. Steele may be referring to is that in a different, the city has separate service areas.
Yeah.
And so in Chugiak, it happens to be a fire service area. And so, yes, they have a separate board to do a fire service area. And then I'm not sure if there's also the Chugiak, it's like Subversa
And land
or
use.
something
Right.
that is somewhat comparable.
But it's not the
to-
same thing as what's in Girdwood.
To,
Sugar Birchwood, Eagle River Rural Road Service Area.
right, and so that's what
So it's
that
road.
Subversa is. In the service areas including the limited road service areas, but they make a decision about whether they're going to be elected or appointed. And so Girdwood was set up to be elected. And so, and I'm not sure without looking if Subursa is elected or appointed, but it's relatively comparable. At the time that, I believe at the time that this was first initiated, not with this rewrite, but when the code was first developed, the Girdwood Board of Supervisors hadn't yet gelled in and matured to the degree it has now. Plus, the Assembly had made an affirmative decision at that time to exempt Girdwood from having to have a community council in the same way that everybody else did. And if the Assembly wants to do that again, then we'll rewrite it to have that. It was, I had understood, it may be a misunderstanding on my part, that the people who represented Girdwood, which included Jennifer Johnston, that they thought that that was that with Daryl's initiation of code changes, that was something that Girdwood needed to maybe decide how they wanted to do it, and then talk to the Assembly about it. But I resist the idea that somehow the definition of ex officio is going to drive what they do there. I think that is a policy decision to be made between the Assembly and the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, and then the legal can write it however it is. But
I want to talk to Jennifer and Mr. Evans, because they represent that area, and see what they're planning, what they want to do. Yes, Mr. Steele.
Well, Barbara had a question.
I know, but so do these two.
Yeah.
Barbara, anything?
No, I don't.
Mr. Steele and then
Done?
Mr.
Okay.
Hess.
Thank you.
Chigat is supposedly the one that represents that neck of the woods on land use issues as well, but they are different. Both of them are different than our standard metropolitan community councils. But if they choose to fulfill that role, why make another body? Or, it would be good to have them on that list so that we send them things like building issues or planning issues or whatever as well.
I want to get Mr. Evans and Ms. Johnston so we can talk to them. Mr. Hess.
When I believe Ms. Tucker's right, years ago, Girdwood was exempted from having a community council. They didn't have a community council. And in the late 90s, there was a complaint filed with the Ombudsman's office alleging that the Girdwood Board of Supervisors had exceeded their statutory authority, that the code only gave them jurisdiction, I believe, over police, fire, libraries, parks and rec, whatever's in their enabling code. But they had started commenting on land use issues to the Assembly. And as a result, a community group was formed. They held the public meetings, and they tried to move forward with having a community council recognized. The Assembly passed a resolution recognizing the Girdwood Community Council. Mayor Wirch vetoed it. And when I read his veto message, he was correct, because the bylaws of the community group that was petitioning to be recognized as the council recognized the Girdwood Board of Supervisors as their executive board. And Mayor Wirch in his veto message said you cannot have an elected body act as the executive board of what is a voluntary nonprofit community group, self-governing community group. So I never could understand why at the time they didn't just amend their bylaws and move forward again. But the community, my impression from what I've heard is they didn't want to have two bodies. It's a small pool of people that really, and based on my discussion with them at their last meeting, the key issue here is land use issues. So perhaps, I think Ms. Tucker might be on the right path here, is if they're exempted from having a community council and you add land use issues to their authority under their enabling code, that might be a simple way to address the issue. Because what they're not worried about the other duties of a community council, they're worried about commenting on land use issues.
Well, let me get those two members here with the Rules Committee, and let's discuss this. We're fair where we want to go with it. They're not here now, so let me get him here.
I think that's very important.
Okay.
I agree.
Let's move on now. Audience participation. Eugene. Anything, sir?
Great,
Okay.
great.
Adjournment. I get a motion to
Let's
adjourn.
adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Second, yeah.